saying it's way too cheap. I'll get back to that in a second as we welcome in Sam Amick. Good morning, Sam. How are you, friend?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, not as good as we were after the Cleveland game.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. That's a tough for fan bases everywhere. Kings or otherwise. You always hate when there's that one game that gets the good vibes going, and then it's more short-lived than expected.
Which we're getting a lot of this year. I was leading in, and as I said before you came on, I know this isn't your purview necessarily when you're covering the sport, but you know enough to know enough that we were talking to our other friend Kelly Brothers. Or we have another friend,
yes,
but we think about you when we're talking. And I was saying, this is no news to you, Sam. It's a foregone conclusion that barring anything crazy, Seattle and Vegas will be your two next expansion teams. I was opining to Kelly yesterday that, the new owners of the Celtics will probably get somewhere around $600 million when that happens, because last I read, each team's expansion fee be around $1 billion, and $2 billion divided by 30, that's $600 million. Easy math. But no, is that right? Two teams? No, it's not right.
No.
400 million. Nope. Hold on. Wait, I want to do this on my own. 30 teams, $2 billion. Oh, that's right. It's like between 650 and 700 million, right? Something like that.
That sounds wrong.
No, hold on. Let me work this through myself. $2 billion. So let's just say 20. And there's 30 teams, but 3 into 20 is 3 into 21 would be 7, right? So if it was two teams in $1 billion and there were, what the hell is it? Why am I confused?
I don't know.
Okay, well, it's gonna be a lot of money. So, but here's my.
I just want to see you work through.
I don't know if you know this, but 700 million goes into 2 billion about 4 times.
Oh yeah,
4, not 30.
They're 30. I was a 0. Sorry. Well, didn't go to college. What do you want? High school dropout.
Can I just say you need a running segment of sports radio math? There needs to be,
dude. That would not be great. As I've embarrassed myself in front of everybody as usual. Here's my point. There's no way that expansion fee is $1 billion, Sam. It can't be $1 billion. It's the expansion fee's got to be around $3 or $4 billion, I would imagine, per team. Looking at the Golden State Warriors, according to Forbes, at $8.8 billion. The Celtics were valued at $6 billion. They sold at 6.1. By the way, your Sacramento Kings valued at 3.7. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since expansion, but I'm pretty sure the NBA's expansion fee is generally the average valuation of a team plus a little bit. So I'm thinking, Sam, we're not talking $1 billion. We're talking more like $4 billion per team. I know you don't have clarity on that, but does that sound in the ballpark to you?
Your math eventually mathed, but
thank you.
But yeah, I don't have total clarity on it. And I mean, you do wonder if that number is somewhat accurate, if that's maybe why. I mean, have you guys noticed that yes, I generally agree with you that Vegas and Seattle are next in line, that the league and Adam Silver has suddenly started pivoting with their messaging where they keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
For a while it was, well, when we get our TV rights or our streaming, contract done, then we will turn our attention to expansion. That happened. They did not immediately turn their attention to expansion. They haven't still, fielded formal offers from cities. You know what I mean? Like right. some of the finances that you are touching on, and I think the general question of do they make sense right now is partly why this is getting delayed a bit.
Yeah, because you're right, Sam. It felt like that was imminent in a sense. Like once this other part got taken care of. You kind of touched on it, but are there other underlying factors? I don't know if it has to do with ratings or any other financials for the league. Like why else do you think it's maybe been a little bit put on the back burner?
Yeah, I mean, speculating a little bit, admittedly, I've gotten the sense that it's the money stuff, obviously, but it's, you kind of wonder, if it's competitively, they are enjoying this age of parity and for the most part, giving a big thumbs up to the fact that it's, whatever it is, 6 straight years with a new champion and so many fan bases engaged with the plan. I think, like always, when it comes to expansion, the question of diluting talent and, and kind of changing the competitive landscape is one that they certainly spend a lot of time looking at. But yeah, just by and large, and I don't even feel like we've media-wise pressed the issue that much with the league, but it's really kind of cut and dried. Like they said, like the second that deal was done, it was going to be all about expansion, and obviously something has compelled them to slow that roll a little bit.
Could it be? I mean, you hear the rumors of Mexico City,
Yep.
their forays into Europe, although
Yep.
logistically that seems difficult. Could that be a part of it too? That
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, their shift went to Europe real quick.
Yeah.
You know, they obviously are looking at you know, being behind a partnership with the Euro League, and it's not obviously an expansion of the NBA. It's a different thing, but it's expanding their footprint, and it's doing it in a way that wouldn't impact the NBA product, wouldn't require the stuff that we're talking about with expansion. So yeah, it's not. I'm not by any means saying that expansion is off the table, or even, you know, still not unofficially happening within the next decade, 5 years. It's just more, yes, they have started to prioritize other endeavors globally that I do think the Mexico City one, you know, they just had another game there not too long ago. They love that market. Adam has always been, you know, very focused on that market as a way to, he wants to go global. And obviously, you know, doing that in Europe is a whole lot tougher than it is on this continent. So just a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah, based on that, it seems like Mexico City. Again, I don't know if easier is. Well, I guess that is the term. Like, wouldn't that just make more sense if that's what they wanted to do? But that doesn't quite hit, you know, obviously Europe at all. But I think that logistically seems to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, it does. It's, you know, that's one of the few places in terms of like NBA targets that I haven't been. But my colleague and buddy Joe Varden has been to Mexico City quite a few times, and I remember his latest story. You know, he shared a lot of detail from their regular season game there about the lay of the land as far as like where people with means lived in relation to the arena, and then how it, you know, on that particular day it took over an hour, I think it was, to get there because in terms of the city itself, you know, the venue wasn't right where it was like the safest. So, you know, you have stuff that just doesn't that comes into play that is you know, I think part of the reason it hasn't happened. But they've had a G League team down there for a while. Certainly questions about players and how they would feel about living in Mexico City. But yeah, they've looked at it for years.
Here's why I think there's absolutely no chance in hell Mexico City ever happens. And there's a number of things you just mentioned, but you know what doesn't get mentioned enough? It's incredibly simplistic, but Denver is 5,280 feet in the air, and we always hear about the home court advantage Denver has because, you know, athletes come in there and they have trouble breathing. Yeah, Mexico City is 2,000 feet higher than Denver. I mean, I'm just saying, I can't imagine a situation where, I guess in this case, 31 other teams with expansion would be cool with rolling into Mexico City and basically having an asthma attack for 48 minutes trying to play basketball. I know that's really simplistic, but dude, that is beyond a home court advantage.
No, for sure. Although surprisingly, I don't feel like I've heard that complaint, you know, really. I mean, it's one of those complaints that would certainly be there if it happened, but I don't think I agree, Dave, that it's an obstacle. As crazy as that sounds, because I couldn't agree more. It's when I, you know, admittedly, because I hadn't been there and I was a little dense on that fact. When I learned that, you know, a couple of years back, I just, it was obviously kind of had you shaking your head, like, you know, I mean, the Nuggets use, as you know, the altitude as a marketing ploy. It's 5,280. It's on the court. You walk into the arena, but the whole premise and their framing is that, you know, this is a major edge for us. So yeah, taking that up, not to go down the math road again, but, you know, 25, 30%, that would be quite the game changer.
Sam Amick joining us. Sam, I do want to talk to you about ask a few things at least about the Kings, the up and down nature. I mean, this isn't new. This, you know, what they did the last 2 days is kind of a snapshot of the season. They've got some really good wins. They've got the head scratching losses. I guess this is who they are, but when you kind of look at them and you see the ability to do what they did to Cleveland, but also that same equal ability to lose to some of these other teams, what's your, I guess, best explanation for that?
Yeah, explain it, Sam.
Yeah, in detail.
Yeah, I mean, I'm peeking. Anybody on YouTube can see me looking elsewhere. I'm peeking at the standings just to see the latest here.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not in the clear by any means from a playing sense yet. It seems close. How many games they have left? Like 11, 12?
Yeah,
12 or something.
Yeah,
13.
they're 35. They've played 69.
So 13.
So yeah, 13.
13, more math.
Uh-huh.
Good job, Dave.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the other night, no LaVine. The Cleveland, I mean, given the Cavs their third straight loss, I was at that game. I don't know how to put my finger on it other than the Kings are not the most complicated team. That's not even a criticism, but offensively, especially when they have LaVine, you're talking about so much, dynamic scoring on the wings, but not always in the same sort of systematic way that they had in the past when you had, Domas and Fox, high pick and rolls, spraying the ball, that type of thing. This is a different look. And, it is sometimes, I think, falls a little too prey, if that makes sense, to who's hot and who's not. And LaVine has a bad night, against his old team. Kevin Huerter gets hot in his reunion game, and that's kind of it. The other night, Malik Monk against Cleveland is dynamic and doing good things, but it's just a little bit more about the hot hand on a consistent basis than it is kind of the offensive identity in the attack, if that makes sense.
Well, that's something we've been discussing, and I think if anybody had the answer, they'd be working for the team right now. We're all guessing, but I've kind of stuck with this idea that they're a good fantasy basketball team. I keep going back to that. They have at each position great talent, but the problem is the fit. And we've noticed that the Cavs game they didn't have LaVine, and they won. The Memphis game, they entirely won that game at the end of the first quarter when they went on this crazy run, and that was with DeMar DeRozan playing and LaVine on the bench. And I think the same thing would have happened if DeRozan was on the bench and LaVine was playing. I'm just not entirely sure that long-term LaVine and DeRozan can share the floor and see success.
And I'm not even trying to be sarcastic, but it's very rare in this league when a team already has the kind of data that the Kings already have, meaning that, those guys did this in Chicago for years. Like, we know what it looks like. And it was fine, but it wasn't contending basketball. And those Bulls teams obviously went beyond DeMar and Zach, but they were, the biggest pieces of that pie. And these same questions got asked in Chicago. Fans had the same mixed emotions because for what it's worth, they're both good guys. They're both fun to watch. They're both, insanely talented. DeMar getting to 25,000 points is incredible, especially for a guy that doesn't really shoot threes as much as, folks of this era. But yeah, like, we've seen this before. We know the imperfect fit that comes with those two guys.
Sam, you said you're at the game the other night, the Cleveland game, and I think that one in particular was probably the best we've seen. Kings rookie Devin Carter, who, there's been more starts and stops with him, obviously with the injury that didn't get his career started the way he wanted to, but maybe playing finally a little bit better. Obviously he's not in any kind of rookie of the year talk or anything like that. That's not the suggestion here, but just as you've seen him develop a little bit, what do you see from him now, and where do you think that ceiling could be for him?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I don't think I'm off saying this, his best game of the year. And the type of thing that this time of year is, I think, great for a team that is still trying to figure out its long-term future. It's pretty important to have a guy like that actually make a mark. A two-way player. That dunk that he had showed some of that athleticism. I think it was over Dean Wade. But, good stuff. He's still and he's young, and I don't know who they're working with him or who's working with him in terms of his shot. He just has some jumpers that make you just shake your head a bit. Like so I don't know, shooting coach wise, there's a lot of room for progress there, I'll say. But that's a guy that if you go to the first half of the year, when he was dealing with his injury, and the Kings were dealing with all kinds of other stuff that didn't go their way, that was one of the marks against them was like, did they know how bad the injury was? You can't be missing on a pick that high, at this stage for the franchise. And so all in all, to have progress and have it swing back in a positive direction, I think is a pretty big deal for him and them if they can keep the momentum going there.
Sam Amick joining us, brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Check out The Athletic, both at theathletic.com and, of course, the app, which is the best place to not just curate your feed with your favorite authors and your favorite teams, but also get it in a very, very nice layout. No ads, nothing like that. Sam, you asked about the standings, and the Kings 35-34. They are 2.5 ahead of the Suns. They are also 2.5 ahead of the Mavericks. The difference there is the Suns have won 2 in a row, including a game a few games ago where they beat Sacramento. The Mavericks have lost 4 in a row. The Mavericks have lost 9 of 10. I've used this analogy before, Sam. You're in our age group. Do you remember the movie Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor?
I remember of it. I don't remember if I saw it.
The whole thing is his long lost uncle gave him $30 million as an inheritance. He was just he was a hanger on minor league pitcher. The catch was he could either take it and go, or he had to spend $30 million in 30 days. He couldn't tell anybody about it. He had to blow $30 million in 30 days and he'd get $300 million. My point is this. If you purposely were trying to completely tank a team and fan base, I'm not sure Dallas could have done any better than what Nico Harrison and that group have done, not just on purpose, but also the bad luck that has gone with it. And now you have guys like Mark Cuban and Dirk Nowitzki, foundations of the franchise, making remarks outside to the media that aren't that great. I'm going to ask you what the situation is in Dallas. It's obviously crap, but what's your read on that whole thing?
It's crazy because I hear you, but I would remind you, and I don't remember who their opponent was, that if you talk about just this version of the Mavericks being competitive and being title contenders, potentially, what's crazy is that they got like 3 quarters with Anthony Davis and Kyrie and Klay Thompson and that group before AD got hurt after the trade. And they were dynamic. AD looked great. I obviously strongly, like so many others, disagree with the decision that was the trade. But to your point, the luck, the bad luck is what has taken this thing to just a whole different level, because the AD injury, the Kyrie injury, everything from there, because it was already such a short-term prospect. It was an internal decision that we don't trust Luka anymore. And, their owner, Patrick Dumont, talked about this last week. He highlighted the trade deadline a year ago. And the way I heard his comments was he was almost acting like, yeah, Luka helped us get to the finals a little bit. But if you remember, we weren't really contenders until the trade deadline when we added defensive players in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. His mentality seemed to be that that's when he was convinced, with his GM, Nico Harrison, telling him this, that we need an all the way in defensive identity. And that's what they did. And obviously it was a foolhardy decision that's probably going to go down as one of the worst trades of all time. Because now, we all know AD's not Mr. Availability. They're going to have to pay him down the road. So it's going down an awful road, but it's crazy how you had this little sliver at the start where I could see that they thought they were going to be really good right now.
Well, and that's Sam, just to follow up. That's my big problem with it. I think that's a lot of people's big problems. It's first off, I can see if I tilt my head and squint, I can see their logic. Okay, you don't want to deal with Luka Doncic anymore. You want off that train. Okay, I may not agree with it, but I can at least understand it and acknowledge I don't know the inside story like they do. But you mentioned luck, and yes, Kyrie Irving was bad luck. Here's the thing about Anthony Davis, though. It's like if I put on a bunch of Michigan gear and I go to Columbus, Ohio during Ohio State, Michigan week, and I walk around at the bars at 1 a.m., at some point, somebody's probably going to take a swing at me. It doesn't make it right, but I also kind of created my own luck there. They traded for a guy whose nickname is literally street clothes, and shockingly, he got injured, which isn't fair, but it is what happened, and it's not like it wasn't semi-predictable. My main thing, Sam, and I think everybody else's is, dude, you have a piece like Luka Doncic, which is arguably the most valuable player traded in his prime in a generation or two, and you did a secret squirrel dance with Nico Harrison with maybe we hear a whisper to Minnesota about Anthony Edwards. How the hell do you not basically say bidding's open and take the best deal? That's my big problem with what Nico did.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you, buddy. I mean, there's a picture of, I don't know what year, where it's Kobe Bryant with Nico Harrison in the background, and AD, a young AD, is in the picture as well. Now, Nico, for anybody listening who doesn't know, was a high-ranking Nike executive before this job, and I've written this, and again, I'm big on, like, I enjoy explaining situations to people, not like endorsing them, just helping you understand why. So
nailed the Steph Curry presentation with Nike too, by the way.
Yes. And the reality is that Nico has a pretty limited kind of basketball worldview, I think, that is shaped by his Nike experience, where he's got his guys, and it does feel and appear, and there's a lot of people who believe this, that this is like, a lot of this is just the interpersonal dynamics. He and AD, going back to those days of Kobe and Nike and everything, he and AD are very close. He thinks, kind of in a vacuum, he might think that AD is a better player than Luka. So he went after AD. There's a lot of chatter that he's going to go after KD this summer, another Nike guy with Kevin Durant, and just go for the known commodity early 30s NBA superstar team is what he is after.
Sure.
And again, we've recapped all this in the past, but like Luka, meanwhile, was not kind of in lockstep with the organization in terms of his habits on and off the court. Culturally, they felt like their priorities were different. They obviously wanted a defensive identity, all those things. So yeah, I mean, they did it. It's crazy. We've never had a trade like this where, I mean, what is it, like 7 weeks now? And we're still dissecting it with our hands on the air. Like, what the hell? Like it's.
We've been doing that for years, dude.
You're right. Well, on the premise of what you said, Sam, like just kind of the logic behind it is like, look, what they saw for AD, the half that he was healthy, looked really good. But let's just imagine, and he's working out, maybe coming back, if they get that glimpse. So let's just kind of picture that version of the Mavs before this season wraps up, and the current version of the Suns. Those are the likely teams the Kings would face in this 9-10 scenario. What do you think would be a better option for the Kings? What we see now with the Suns on a night-to-night basis, or that potential of the Mavs?
No, I would personally go for the potential of the Mavs. No question.
As a better matchup, or
better matchup.
Okay.
Better matchup. Yeah. I mean, now I'm cheating looking at the Suns. I mean, they've won 3 out of 4.
Look at their next 10 though. Is brutal who they play.
Well, right. But matchup wise, I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Well, because the Mavericks are going to have to play like 3 guys in the playoffs, apparently.
The Suns probably beat the Kings. That's my take.
But even if it's like Gafford's back and Lively and AD with Clay with Din, I mean they're still hurt, but I wonder about that version of that team.
Well, what are the timelines there? I should know these things, Jay. I'm being the link here.
I just know that AD's kind of been working out again or back, like doing some practices with G. I don't know if he's coming back there. They might even be talking. Is that the best for the team to do?
Yeah, that's the thing is I have not been under the impression that they were going to be fully healthy. If you're talking about that fully healthy version, then Dallas is a better team.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that happening. I mean, I do actually, again, I go back to that opening thing. If Kyrie doesn't get hurt, if AD doesn't get hurt, like I actually think it could have been a crazy storyline because after all the criticism they took on the Luka trade, I could have seen Dallas making a very deep playoff run. That's not going to happen now. I don't think it's in their best interest to bring AD back. So yeah, I mean, the Kings should hope they see Dallas in that play-in.
Yeah.
Guys, let's just be honest. The most likely scenario, they're going to slip to 10. They'll beat Phoenix. They'll beat the Clippers and then take the Thunder out in 3 and then
In three,
and then
point.
lose in the second round. That's just who the hell this team is. Sam,
Game series now.
yeah, exactly. Take them out. Remember,
They're
it's
that
math.
good.
They are that free. Oklahoma will just
we're done.
they'll throw their hands up. Sam, appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. Normally, just remember, Sam is our 8 a.m. guest on Thursdays, but a little recreational Amick family picnic this week, and we support those family times very, very much. So we got Friday, Sam. We appreciate you. Now we only have to wait 6 days to talk to you again, my man.
Love it. Thank you, boys. Have a great day.
Take care. We'll take a break when we come back.